Okay, picture this. You're sitting at a friend's wedding. The room is softly lit, the music swells, and you watch two people stand at the altar and promise forever. You smile at the vows, you truly do. But as you clap and cheer along with the rest of the room, you realize you're quietly carrying this profound sense of isolation. You scroll through endless anniversary captions online, you listen to your friends endlessly analyze their dating lives, the undeniable chemistry, the painful red flags, the devastating almost, and you just nod along. You say all the right things. But secretly, you feel completely out of sync with these cultural milestones. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly why that is.
It's a heavy question, right? And honestly, for a lot of people, it's one that feels almost shameful to admit out loud. Why hasn't this ever happened to me? You've never felt that cinematic, butterflies in the stomach, all-consuming obsession. You've never experienced a devastating romantic heartbreak. We live in a world that basically treats romantic love like a mandatory, universal rite of passage. So when you reach your 20s, your 30s, or well beyond without ever feeling it, a really quiet shame can start to set in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Society practically hands us this expectation, this supposed universal emotional blueprint for love that everyone is just supposed to automatically receive. But your reality? It's starkly different. You feel developmentally out of sync, almost like you somehow missed the download that literally everyone else got to experience. You look around and genuinely wonder, what is wrong with my wiring?
Section 1. The hidden narrative. You are not broken. If you've been secretly carrying the burden of that shame, I really need you to hear the reality of your situation. You are not unlovable, and you absolutely did not fail at being human. Just let this quote sink in for a second. The very walls that keep romantic love out were often built to protect something incredibly fragile inside of you. Your emotional walls are not character flaws. They're often brilliant protective adaptations designed by your brain to keep you safe. Your lack of a cinematic love story simply means there's a deeper, unseen narrative at play here. One perfectly shaped by biology, psychology, your specific environment, and your timing.
Let's move to Section 2, Biology and Threat Detection, when the amygdala blocks romance.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hard science behind how your nervous system actually processes connection. The romantic expectation is that when a potential partner appears, your brain is supposed to flood with warmth, dopamine, oxytocin, the bonding chemicals. But for many people, a threat detection reality takes over. Instead of warmth, your amygdala, which is basically your brain's primary alarm system, scans for danger. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, suddenly spikes. To your nervous system, romantic vulnerability doesn't feel like a fun adventure. It feels fundamentally unsafe.
And this explains so much about the dating experience. You might go on a date, suddenly notice tiny, completely insignificant flaws in a potential partner, and just write the whole thing off as a lack of chemistry. But actually, scratch that. It usually isn't chemistry that's missing. It is safety. Your nervous system is deliberately pulling the emergency brake, prioritizing your immediate safety over a potential romantic connection.
But hey, for others, the explanation isn't about a threat response at all. It's purely biological. Modern psychology uses something called the split attraction model. This framework suggests that romantic attraction and sexual attraction operate completely independently. If you exist on the aromantic spectrum, your brain naturally just doesn't generate that same neurochemical cascade in response to romantic cues. It's not repression, it's not a fear of intimacy, it's simply your biological orientation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept. Think of it this way. We wouldn't ever accuse someone who is colorblind of failing or refusing to see the color red, right? We completely recognize it's just a different visual map. Well, the exact same logic applies to the aromantic spectrum. It is not a failure to love, it's simply a different emotional map. It's a completely valid way to exist in the world.
Let's look at Section 3, the roots of detachment, tracing the origin story. For those whose absence of cinematic love really does stem from protective walls, we kind of have to ask, when were those walls built? Often, this traces back to a quiet, easily overlooked childhood emotional neglect. Maybe your physical needs were perfectly met, you had food, shelter, schooling, but your emotional world was never really mirrored back to you. When a child's emotions aren't recognized, they adapt by disconnecting from them. And this can actually lead to a condition called alexithymia, which is a literal difficulty in identifying or describing your own emotions. Consider the lifelong impact of this. If your emotions weren't mirrored, you essentially taught yourself to live slightly detached from your own inner world just to survive. This frequently develops into a dismissive, avoidant attachment style in adulthood. I mean, think about it. You cannot safely plunge into an all-consuming, highly vulnerable cinematic romance as an adult if your earliest survival mechanism literally required you to disconnect from intense feelings. It makes that kind of love feel entirely inaccessible.
Let's move to and see how this builds both biologically and psychologically. Look at how psychologist Abraham Maslow mapped out our hierarchy of needs. Notice the order here. First, secure physiological needs. Second, establish safety and stability. Only then, at step 3, do we pursue love and belonging. You absolutely have to secure the foundation before you can even think about building the house.
So, the crucial point is this. If you spent your teens and your 20s in pure survival mode, trying to financially, mentally, or emotionally stabilize your life, your brain simply did not have the capacity for romance. Survival mode prioritizes control and predictability to protect your future. Romantic love, by its very nature, is uncertain, highly vulnerable, and completely disruptive. You weren't failing at dating, your nervous system was successfully protecting your future.
Moving on to Section 4, Rejecting the Script, a gentle solution.
Understanding the pathology and the origins is deeply validating, for sure, but it's time to shift from analyzing the past to empowering your present. The first step in this gentle solution is actively rejecting what we call compulsory romance. This is that pervasive, toxic cultural lie that romantic infatuation is the highest or even the only valid way to connect with other human beings. We have to completely dismantle this idea. We also have to let go of the toxic perfectionism fueled by modern dating apps. I mean, when you have a machine in your pocket offering thousands of potential partners, swiping starts to feel less like romance and more like a second job. The paradox of choice creates immense anxiety, literally forcing you to evaluate people as optimized options rather than experiencing them as flawed, real humans. We also have to stop measuring our actual lives against a script written for a screen. Cinematic love is designed to be frictionless and epic. It's designed to look like something worth instantly surrendering your independence for. But real connection, it doesn't look like that. Real connection unfolds gradually. It includes awkwardness, missteps, and quiet, unglamorous growth. If you've been waiting for a movie script to play out in your living room, you might be overlooking perfectly valid, beautiful human connections that didn't sparkle immediately, but could have deepened amazingly over time.
And that brings us to Section 5, Expanding the Definition of Love, Ancient Greek Connections.
You know, the ancient Greeks gave us a much richer vocabulary for connection, proving that modern romantic love is absolutely not the only valid metric for a successful human life. Yes, there's eros, the passionate romance and infatuation that society pushes non-stop. But look at the others on this table. There's philia, deep, profound friendship and platonic bonds that foster mutual growth. There's storge, familial devotion and unconditional affection for your community. And crucially, there is philautia, self-love, the quiet, profound ability to feel completely at home within yourself. A life can be incredibly rich, beautiful, and completely whole through philia and philautia without ever once following the single script society handed you.
I want you to take away this core truth from our explainer today. Wholeness is not granted by another person, and it is not unlocked by a relationship status. You are a complete individual right now. You are not half of anything just waiting around to be completed by someone else.
I want you to hear this, and I want you to actually truly believe it. You are not behind, and you are not broken. Whether your heart's architecture was designed by a need for safety, a different biological orientation, or a quiet focus on building a stable life, your emotional landscape is entirely valid.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What if your unawakened heart isn't a failure at all, but a wonderfully designed map to a totally different kind of whole life? If this explainer resonated with you today, I want you to know that you are seen, you are safe, and you are understood here. I'd love to invite you to share your own quiet journeys and experiences in the comments below. Because honestly, sharing is exactly how we dismantle that isolation. Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and I'll see you next time.